Welcome back for another episode of Sunday SoulDay, fueling your mind, body, and soul with soulful conversations and life-changing insights. Today's bonus episode is deeply personal and incredibly powerful. I'm joined by Satara Brown, entrepreneur, marketing strategist, and founder behind multi-purpose-driven ventures designed to help burned out women rebuild, realign, and rise. But this conversation goes far beyond business. We talk about her unexpected pivots from law enforcement to full-time entrepreneurship, building brands messily and learning as she goes, and how the devastating loss of her mother became the catalyst for her healing journey. From attending free yoga classes in the park during one of the hardest seasons of her life to now preparing to open her own yoga studio, Satara is transforming pain into purpose and building community every step of the way. This is a conversation about resilience, reinvention, grief, faith, and what it really means to grow through what you go through. Let's welcome Satara. Welcome to Sunday SoulDay, Satara.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. I'm excited to dive into your background. I know when we initially connected, I was so intrigued by your journey because you have such a powerful journey from a career in criminal justice, which it's rare that you then make the jump to nonprofit leadership, where you're working more on the HR side, and then now full-time entrepreneurship and a coach. So I would love to just first take us back to that journey, like, your earlier chapters, and share kind of what inspired those shifts, because I think that's such a common denominator amongst humans is pivots and transitions. And so let's talk about that.
I went straight into community college because I'm like, it's weird if I go to a university right now. It's January, people already have friends. Yeah. So I got my associate's degree, and then I transferred to a 4-year university, and I graduated a year early. I just went to work. So I'm like, okay. I joined a community service organization on campus, and then I got an internship at the New York State Senate, and then I got an internship at the New York State Assembly, and through my experiences with my internship and my past work history, I got a job 3 days after college. The job was at a law enforcement agency. I always wanted to be an attorney. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And I got a state job and I'm getting paid good money and I got benefits and stuff. So I worked at that job, but then I got bored after a year. So I used to go around to the different departments to see where I can possibly elevate and get a promotion. I got a promotion a year and a half in. I helped develop a unit, and then I got bored again. In the midst of all of that, I started a nonprofit organization. I just want to give back to my community. So when I grew my nonprofit, I didn't realize that I was being the marketing director, building a human resources department, doing every single thing.
All the hats.
Every single hat. So I learned all these skills through my nonprofit, and I still kept a full-time job. So I became the marketing director of a law firm. I started working at a court. I then worked at a police department. And this was in 2020, in the wake of the death of George Floyd. And with everything going on in the world, I was burnt out. And I was like, this isn't working. At the time, I was getting my master's in criminology and justice. So I would think that I would go on to do something in that field of work. But I took a pivot. And because of the work and the skills that I gained through my nonprofit in the human resources department, I started working for a top healthcare provider in New York City in the HR department. All while this is going on, I had a consulting business that I was doing on the side. So once I started my nonprofit and I raised $500,000 through grants and foundations, everyone asked me, how do you do it? So I started teaching people how to start nonprofits. And then I started teaching people how to start for-profit businesses and then how to scale. And I took a moment, a break from the corporate life 10 months in because my mother got sick and she required my full attention. She had cancer and she later passed away. And after she passed away, I went back into the workforce and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So I took the leap to be a full-time entrepreneur, and it has been the best decision ever.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing your journey. And that's what I love about just talking to people, because everyone's journey is so unique to them. and how we make our decisions and the choices we choose along the way really shape, our next move. And so it's interesting, like you went from total extremes, like different paths, but it was interesting how you're still able to carry, some of the things that you learned from the previous roles into the next role. And so tell me a little bit about that because you went from, like you said, criminal justice, nonprofit, working in marketing and HR and doing all these things, focusing on business strategy and helping people all while earning your certification at Harvard, right? You were juggling your full-time job and also doing entrepreneurship on the side. Like, what did those experiences teach you about resilience and resourcefulness?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is don't get too caught up on a title. Some people are in the spotlight losing, and just because they have that big name as CEO, it seems like, they're doing all of these big things. I think that people really need to hone in on the skills that they're learning. It doesn't matter what your job title is. Whatever space you're in, you have to make the best of it and you have to get the most out of it. You have to think about how is this benefiting me, even if you don't know what the end results are. At first, I was known as Satara from Facebook. And I would walk down the street and people were like, "You're the girl from Facebook." And I'm like, "What you want?" But I was building a name for myself, and then that really escalated and elevated to a point where government agencies were reaching out to me for funding, and I did all of the branding myself on social media, and it was because of those tools that I became the marketing director of a law firm. Now, full circle, I'm getting my master's in marketing and communications, but it's because I really honed in on the journey that I've been through and the skills that I learned. And I want to um, have better qualities in those skills so I can better serve my clients.
Yeah, and I think, you touched on resourcefulness quite a bit just in that, because I think that is something that is a great takeaway for the audience, is understanding, like, even if you're in a role that maybe you're not excited about or it's not your end all be all role, you still take something from that. So then you can use those resources, in your next opportunity. But in order to do that, it's like you have to show up, and show up fully. And that's something, that I wish I could instill in, the younger generation, like as much as I can, because one thing that I noticed working in tech was there was a lot of, individuals who just were very entitled, and they thought because they went to these major schools or, what have you, they have these backgrounds that they were then, supposed to be like have the red carpet laid out. And I'm like, you can, but you got to also like prove yourself, like and come in and work hard and learn and be a student. The best talent that I have seen, they don't have a through line, don't have a linear path, and their journey, they've been able to take something from each position, that they worked in and use it to their advantage in their next opportunity. And they just keep doing that over and over and over and honing in on those skills because, that sounds like exactly what you did, in all of your roles. You're able to hone in on your strengths, and probably identify some areas of improvement while you were, elevating. And so I think that's an important takeaway.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned your mother, and I can't imagine losing your mother during all of this time when you're still developing, you're still, learning and growing and all of these things. Like, how did that experience kind of reshape your entire path? Because you really stepped away, from all the things you were doing to then you stepped into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so when my mom got sick, she was sick for 6 years, but the last 10 months of her life, she was extremely sick. I took her on vacation. We went to Miami. We stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. The girl spent up all my money, and I didn't even have a care in the world. Like she was charging everything to the room, and it was just such a great experience. But then a week later, when we came home, I took her to the hospital and they said that the cancer was back after being gone for 5 years and it was in her brain.
Oof.
And I was working from home at the time. And I would have to go into the office a couple days a week. But it came to a point where I was like, nope, a job does not matter that much to me more than my mom does. And I quit my job. I didn't tell anyone because it was a decision I needed to make for myself and my mom. My mom was my best friend, and I needed to make sure she had the best care. And I told my family afterwards, and they're like, how are you going to survive? You know, instead of saying, throwing all this money at me, they just were like, how are you going to survive? I actually applied for unemployment, and I was getting my little $400 a week, and I had to make it work. And between, you know, all of her medicines, at one point I was buying Depends because she no longer could go to the bathroom herself. I was buying all her food. And through that, you spoke about resilience. It just showed me. And, you know, I handled that responsibility with grace. Like, I was honored that I was in that position to take care of my mom. And it goes back to the skills that I've taught myself and I learned along my journey that everything was going to be okay. You know, whatever the outcome was, she later passed away. But I knew that we was gonna be good because I was gonna make it work. And that goes into my journey now as an entrepreneur. Like, I know how to make a lot of things work. And if I went through all of that, just me and my mom, I'm gonna make it work. And I'm going to, one, prioritize my health, and two, I'm not chasing a bag. I'm not chasing any money. Money is not the ultimate goal. That 10 months that I got to spend with my mom, we had a great time. We had such a good time, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And it taught me that, like, life is about doing what you want to do, not what other people want you to do.
I love that. This isn't a knock to anyone who wants to work a job and not go down the entrepreneur path. But I love that you know you. That's the most important, through all of this. Everything starts and ends with you and your mindset, and you talk about resilience. And so many of us go through things that can break us, but we get to choose how long we stay down, how long we stay in that state, how long, like, how do we come out of it? Do we come out of it like better? And it sounds like you really took that challenge on with a lot of grace, love for your mom, and also just resilience, because it takes resilience. Like, no one talks about that when they talk about taking care of a sick parent or, sick child or sick loved one. It takes such a toll on you, personally. So I want to talk about that because as you were taking care of her, I imagine, and I haven't been in this position, so please correct me if I'm incorrect, but I imagine there's grief during that process and then also grieving after, so like, and it can be personal grief of my life isn't where where I want it to be right now because I am taking care of my mom. And it's not that you're necessarily resenting, but it's like there is that grief component because you're human. Did you experience any of that? And then, like, what was your grief like after? And, how did you really help heal yourself?
During the process, I called my pastor the first day my mom was in the hospital, and I would like work from home in the hospital, everything. And my pastor came over and she prayed. And I don't want to say I got upset with her, but I wasn't really feeling what she said. And what she said was something along the lines of, whatever God's will is, will be what it is. And I wanted her to come and say, she's going to heal, she's going to get better. But what she said stuck with me through the process. And that was the first person who came to visit my mom. And that was the first words and prayers we did together and everything. And although it wasn't what I wanted to hear, it was what I needed to hear, because I kept that in the back of my head that it's God's will. So there's a possibility that my mom will not get better. I didn't wear that on my sleeves and exhibit that in my everyday behavior. I fought so hard to help better my mom's health, but I knew that she was going to die. And my mom, she smoked. So she had lung cancer originally, and then it just went everywhere. And then they were saying it's down her spine and all this stuff. She's never going to be able to work again. I had to hear the doctor say that she looks malnourished, and I had to step up. I wanted to cry a lot of times, but I had to be that strong person for her because she was always that strong person for me and she never left my side. So when we're talking about grieving while someone is actively dying, it was very challenging. I had to make a lot of decisions on my own. My family members were in denial. It was very tough for them to deal with, but I knew I was never going to leave my mom's side because she never left my side. And it got to the point, it was like her 12th hospital visit, and they were like, there's nothing else that we can do. And I had the conversation with her oncologist because I'm a realist, and I didn't have this conversation in front of my mom because it wasn't to hurt her. And I was like, how much longer does she have? And they told me 5 weeks. So we went home. We just lived every single day in the best way possible. And it got to the point where I'm just like, you know what? If she doesn't want to eat healthy, she can eat whatever she wants to eat. And it wasn't that I was giving up on her, it was just the reality. And death is one of the only things promised in life. And it hurt me, but every day I showed up strong for her. Um, but I was grieving, and it was a terrible experience for me. Although I'm grateful, I was drinking a lot of liquor. I couldn't leave the house, so I would like drink at night. I would like do everything for her. If she's up at 5 a.m., I'm up from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. watching her. But then I'm like drinking afterwards every single day. And I'm not like just consuming one drink. I was drinking way too much. It was too much for me to handle. So I felt like I needed an outlet, and I felt like I wanted to be out of touch with reality. So I was resorting to alcohol. And it got to the point where I told my mom, like, they said that you only have a couple weeks left. And I had to tell her that it's okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get an apartment and I'm going to go back to work. And my nephews are going to be okay. Because she was really worried about me and she was worried about my nephews. And when I told her that, it gave her ease, like I told her, you did your job. It's okay. I got this from here. And she was so scared. Like the last couple nights that she was alive, I slept in the bed with her. And then I had everyone come over and say goodbye to her. And her one friend, Shanice, she's been so good to my mom and so good to our family. My mom waited for Shanice to come. Everyone else came. My mom waited until Shanice came. Shanice sat with my mom for a long period of time. As soon as Shanice left, Shanice didn't even make it home, and she lives like 5 minutes away. I texted her and I said, my mom died because she died. And that was just so much in itself. And then to top all of this off, my family's in disarray. 2 weeks later, I get kicked out of my parents' home. So now I'm homeless. I'm grieving my mom. I'm homeless. I just told you that I didn't have a job. I'm living off of my unemployment. So I ended up going back to my mom's childhood residence in the city. And it was like a culture shock for me. Like my mom's from the projects, and like I was now in this new environment. I'm still like drinking, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm totally sick. Like I can't believe that I'm 33 years old and my mom is dead. And my unemployment was running out. And I was like, okay, I have to go to work. So I was like, all right, I got to stop drinking a little bit. But it was so hard to stop drinking because I'm like, I can't believe my mom is dead. Like, this is crazy. Um, so I got a job.
That's what I wanted to touch on is that grief, because it's easy for people to empathize, right? And be like, oh, it's so horrible she lost her mom. But to really put color to that grief, that's why I can only imagine like how you're grieving, watching your loved one dying in front of you, then trying to find some sense of, normalcy in that, but then also not wanting to feel either, because it was so painful. So what did you do? You start numbing, and all of us have different vices. Some people turn to food, some people, so there's no judgment, some people turn to, hard drugs, some people turn to alcohol, like, and some people don't eat at all. There's extremes. Some people bury themselves in work. And so
Hmm.
That you touched on that because I think it's so important, such an important takeaway that if anyone's in that position right now, give yourself grace, because it is, we're here for you, like you hear Satara talking about it, and I can feel your energy as you were talking about it. It's almost like you were reliving it, it feels very heavy still on your heart. And so I imagine just that shift. And then the cultural shift of getting kicked out and not having support. Like, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about is just like, it seems like no one was there while she was transitioning and then not after for you. Like, who covered you?
God.
Hmm.
God. I had to, during my mom's uh battle, I wanted someone to just come and fix it, right? I don't, whether it was the doctors, my dad, my siblings, I just wanted the problem fixed. And in that moment, I learned that the only person you have is God. I was wearing my friends out, my family members, like, because I'm like just drinking every day, like, what, come fix this problem. Like, where are you guys at? Help me. And my mom said to me, stop calling people to come help us. No one's coming to help us. And when she said that, I was like, you know what? That's real. I'm not even going to be mad anymore. I'm just going to channel my energy into being the best daughter I can be at this time because my mom needs me and her life depends on it. And I had to realize that, it's God's will. Whatever is going to happen is what God has written already, so there's nothing that I can go against it. So just for the time being, I wanted to make my mom feel as comfortable as possible. And that meant a sacrifice of me putting my feelings behind.
Yeah, and I think we all do that in different situations, where we push our feelings aside for the betterment of our loved ones, but it does wear on you. And so you actually discovered a tool that I would love to talk about that I think would be a great takeaway even for the audience, and that was yoga.
Yes,
When did you
yes.
start, when did you even come across yoga? How did you come across it? Like, give us your story because, after your mom passed away and you were transitioning and figuring out your next moves, like, when did you come across yoga?
So I've been dibbling and dabbling in yoga for like the last 15 years, but yoga never really resonated with me because like my mind's always going. I'm always ready to do the next task or like thinking about work. So I would like do yoga and it didn't work out. So when I was in the city, I got a job after the week my unemployment ran up, I got a job. So I had to travel 2.5 hours for work. I had to like walk to the subway. Then I had to take another subway to another subway. Then I had to take the Long Island Railroad. Then I had to walk. And it's like a 3 hour ordeal. I stumbled upon yoga in the park at one of the parks in Brooklyn. And it was every Monday at 7 p.m. So I'm like, listen, I'm going to just start leaving work a little bit early so I can make it. And this is going to be my thing. And it was. And then I got into a group on Facebook for Black women in New York City who are looking for friends, and I would invite the girls from the group. So it was like a big thing. And that was the only thing that kept me grounded. It was the only thing that I could look forward to at the time, and it changed my life. I had time to sit in my feelings. I had time to get grounded, to move my body. And once I got my apartment and I moved back upstate, I was like, I'm bringing yoga in the park to my community because we need it. And this saved my life. I haven't drank in a year. I've been focusing solely on yoga. We ran a 8-week series of free yoga in the park when we had like 35 girls showing up. And it is leading me to opening a wellness studio called the Balance Suite because in life, no matter who you are, what kind of job you have, your family background, your dynamics, everyone is seeking balance. And with yoga, it provides you with the grounding and the balance that you need to be the best version of yourself.
I didn't realize that you had kind of dabbled in it here and there, over the years, but it sounds like it was a real grounding experience, but also very healing for you, which is something that you need and what yoga does. And, we talked about this before. Like I started yoga, I'm not going to date myself too much, but
You're an OG.
oh gee, yeah, no, I started yoga, I say before Hollywood grabbed a hold of it, like I was doing it in high school and, I graduated in 1997. So to give you an idea, I was doing yoga back, in the late 90s and I was doing it more for flexibility and my breathing. But the other thing that I didn't realize that it did, and I'm sure this is what you felt, is yoga gets you out of your head and into your body. It gets you so in tune with your body. You can feel like as you're breathing through and doing the different poses, you can feel things that when you're not doing yoga, it's difficult to feel because you're just moving so fast. So whether you're walking, whether you're running or doing some sort of physical exercise, not to say that those aren't good, those are great, to keep you in shape, but doesn't always get you fully into your body. And I think that's what yoga does. It centers you. And so yoga taught me like to understand my body a lot more, but also to like how to process things, like so I could feel things in a way that I, couldn't feel it when I was running. Because I was always seeking the runner's high. So I love that you talked about that. One thing you said, that you're working on your wellness studio and doing all that, you and I both believe this and doing things messy and really embracing imperfection while building something meaningful. Like, talk to me about that for women who feel paralyzed by fear and getting it wrong and, like kind of taking on the let me perfect it first mentality. Talk to us about like, what does that philosophy look like in action for you?
You just got to do it. You just got to do it. Sometimes you might just have a whole bunch of notes and a little bit of a plan. You just have to do it. When I quit my job, my dad's like, maybe you should wait. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't even have told him. One of my friends is like, so what's next? And I was like, yoga, vibes, happiness. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to open a wellness studio. And by doing the free yoga in the park, that got me started. I was able to raise some money so we could pay the yoga instructors, but that was a small step into something even bigger. And at that time, a lot of people didn't even know that I was opening a wellness studio. Um, but you have to get started somewhere, and nothing is perfect. Look at the biggest brands in the world. You can find a million different things that they've done wrong, but they just keep going. But if you don't get started, you are going to be in the same place you were this time last year. And that's why I really am focusing on my consulting business. And I'm working with small businesses all throughout the US, helping them scale their brands, helping them put the systems in place that they need because they have the great ideas and maybe they just need to tap in with someone else, an expert in that area, so that they can really see their dreams flourish.
Yes. And talk to us about your ideal client, because just for anyone who's listening and might, need some support, like, are they people who are just getting started in their path? Are they a little bit more established? Like, who do you mostly work with?
So I mostly work with women owned businesses, and they have gotten started in whatever way that looks like for them. So maybe they are hairstylists, but they do hair out of their home and their dream is to open a studio. Or maybe they're an esthetician and they have a studio, but they're looking to grow their clientele base and offer different educational workshops and things of that sort. So my clients, they range from whether they're just starting their LLC or they need to start their LLC and bring this idea into a legalized business, or if they have gotten some sales and they're looking for that consistent income, and offering whatever products or service it is, that they want this to be something that they're generating revenue on a more reoccurring basis.
That's so needed right now. As you're getting started, and this, we only know what we know, and when we're starting off, we don't know as much as we think we do. And we have a lot of high hopes. People come in with big dreams, and all of that is lovely. But then putting that action to it, is what keeps it going, you know? And so, but you can also be running really fast in the wrong direction. I mean, I'm guilty of that, you know, like, because I was running, you know, I'm naturally a sprinter at heart, instant gratification stuff, you know, I'm like, how fast can I get there? But you
Yeah.
can also run wrong, you know, and run in the wrong direction really fast. And so it is really important even to get guidance, you know, like whether it's through coaching, you know, with Satara, whether it's, you know, joining a community, like getting yourself around like-minded individuals who can, you know, tell you when you're going to make a bonehead decision, you know, maybe save you some financial stress that I
That's
went down, you know, because let's be real. It's like entrepreneurship is hard.
so
It
hard.
tests your gangster all the time. I'm like, I'm like, it is a constant mind fuck, you know,
Yeah.
and you have to be strong. You know, that's why I talked about resilience, you know, and but also like understand like what your North Star is. So you're always, no matter what, even if the path to get there changes,
Yep.
you still got your North Star because that's what keeps you going, you
Yep.
know. So you know, thank you for sharing that. So anyone interested, please reach out to her, and I'll be sure to link all of her information in the comments below and down in the description. Talk to us about your upcoming yoga studio, which is so exciting to be at this step. Like, what's your vision for the space? How do you want women to feel when they walk through those doors, especially those that are rebuilding from grief or maybe even burnout?
When people walk in, I just want to hear a sigh of relief, like,
Love.
like I want to create a space for mothers, for people going through grief, for entrepreneurs, for stay-at-home moms, for any women who need a balance. And I want it to be a sanctuary that feels safe. I feel like there's a lot of spaces that we occupy where we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, and we do not feel safe. And as women, I feel like we carry our families on our back, we carry our jobs on our back, we carry the community on our back, and no one is creating spaces where we can pour into ourselves. So, in this space, I want to offer yoga classes, Pilates classes, maybe some other kind of workout, maybe like a HIIT workout. And I also want to do different workshops and events to help just with awareness and like building yourself up, pouring into yourself, even if it's a candle making class. And I also want to incorporate some grief groups, but not your typical grief group. I want to have programming that really speaks to the community that I'm looking to serve and just truly pours into to women.
Yes, I love that you said that. Just that sigh, I could feel it. You know, it's like, because it's like, I feel like that going into certain spaces. And it's so lovely, you know, like, and I feel like a weight is lifted off my shoulders. And there's not many spaces like that, you know, because I do feel like women, we are constantly like we're armed, you know, like because we're either carrying a lot of stuff, but then we're going into spaces and then we have to navigate those spaces. You know, it's like, is it safe for us? Is it, you know, is this a space where we're going to be seen? Do we have to fight against this space? Sometimes people go to their jobs and they're constantly fighting just to have a voice at the table. You know, like sometimes people have that in their homes. Sometimes they have it with their children. They have tough relationships with their children. I mean, the list goes on. So to have a space that's just for you is kind of like a reminder to women to kind of move from that survival mode to thriving. And so I love that. You know, anything I can co-sign on that, I love it, you know, because I think we need that because we're often operating in survival mode.
Yeah, I just real quick, I normally dress up for Halloween with my 5 and 6 year old nephews. And like in the past I've been like Superwoman and someone asked me what am I gonna be this year? It's not gonna be Superwoman because a woman, because I don't want to be Superwoman anymore. I want to be a soft, caring, loving individual that just flows with life. So I don't know what I'm gonna be, but I'm no longer Superwoman. I'm not wearing that title anymore.
Yes, I love that. I think that it's a perfect description of women, you know, like we operate in that superwoman S on our chest, you know, mode, and it's exhausting.
24/7.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you think about it, we show up fully in our jobs, we show up fully in our families. Like, so then what's left for us? And even if you don't have family, but you have a friend group and you have your, excuse me, even if you don't have children, but you have family, you're still showing up for others, and so it's like, when are you pouring back into yourself? So I love that you're creating a sanctuary for women to be able to do that and to really, to be honest, is just carve out time for themselves. So then they can find that thriving mode. And it doesn't mean you're going to always be in the thriving mode, because sometimes we just got to survive. But creating more spaces where you are, doing that, I think it's really helpful for women. Tell me this, like, because you seem like you've evolved through yoga and you also do some other things I've seen on your social media. Like, what are some ways that you take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can fuel yourself up to keep doing what you do?
I no longer stay up all night long working. I have a bedtime. My phone actually goes off at 7:45 p.m. I don't go to sleep that early anymore. Getting a good night's sleep, taking my magnesium, going for walks, making sure that I move my body, waking up early, whether it's to go to the gym or to have a cup of tea, is something that I've really been starting to do. And then making to-do lists and having a schedule and knowing that, like, I'm not going to get 15 million things done, but here are the priorities. And if we can cross a couple of these things off, it's a win. So just really finding that balance in life. And it's been so good to me, and it's been so rewarding over this last 60 days of me being a full-time entrepreneur.
Yes. Having, I believe, not just a morning routine, but also an evening routine really roots you. And it is a practice. It's something that you have to do continuously in order for it to become, a habit that you just do without even thinking about it. But I think it's so important to have that kind of closure to your day, and having a bit of a ritual behind like how you go to sleep, because it does, like, you can see the people who are very intentional about their rest and
Yeah.
people who are not, and they're up all night, they're, doing all sorts of stuff. And it does wear on you, especially the older you get, not either, neither of us are old, thank you very much, but we are but we're also not 18, so it's like you can't operate like that. You have to be a lot more intentional with your rest and also your body, just understanding, like, in order for your body to reset, because I think that's really important to talk about too, is that reset. I mean, you think about the best athletes in the world, they rest. They prioritize not just their food intake, their workouts, but also their rest. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I when I made the shift to corporate America, I actually got a job offer for the governor's office and I turned it down, and everyone's like, "Why would you do that?" And I'm like, "This body is not the same body when I was 20 years old. I can't be running around after the governor 4 o'clock in the morning. Like I right now I prioritize my peace, and that just doesn't fit into the lifestyle that I want for myself."
Yes. And I think understanding you is the most important. You have to understand where you are, what you need in order to really thrive, going back to what we were talking about earlier. But thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate you coming on to the show and also just your vulnerability. And, you know, I wish that I was near you. I'd give you a big hug right now. But thank you so much for coming on and blessing Sunday Soul Day.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And everyone, as always, have an amazing Sunday. And do us a favor, leave your favorite part about this conversation with Satara in the comments below. And I'll see you next week. Bye.